All right, Charlie, good to see you. Welcome back. And we'll have more on the markets with Charlie Pellet from New York in about 20 minutes' time. As we try to get the rocket off the pad here on a Monday, I will point you to next Wednesday, okay? A week from Wednesday, 10 days out. That's when we're supposed to have a vote in the United States Senate. Remember? That's why the government's open right now. The whole thing hinged on a promise by John Thune that he had given repeatedly to hold a floor vote on health care. This is the extension, presumably, or maybe a whole different program of Obamacare subsidies that, if you're tired of hearing me tell you, block your ears, will expire at the end of the year. Government funding, by the way, expires at the end of January, and these two things are pretty closely related. If we don't figure out the health care, well, we just might shut down again. The problem is no one did anything while they were home, right? No homework was turned in. Nor will it be later. And the dog didn't eat it. It just didn't happen. Last week, the White House was talking about putting up a health care proposal beyond concepts of a plan. When the news hit the Hill, everyone freaked out. The White House pulled it back. Democrats, for their role in this, don't actually have a plan either. They had proposed extending Obamacare subsidies by a year at one point. That got shot down. There was a permanent extension in the air. That got shot down. And so we have no idea what will be voted on next week, if anything at all. But it's a problem if you happen to require health insurance, with premiums going up anywhere from 150 to 400% in pockets of the nation, in many cases in red states. And that's why we're talking still about this today, even though the government's been open and a lot of people forgot about all the pain that was inflicted. Enter Bill Cassidy. The Republican senator from Louisiana, a physician, has been the face of reform, at least outside of President Trump, who says just send all the money directly to people. They'll call the health insurance and work it out between them and, United Healthcare. Cassidy has a slightly more nuanced plan that also would essentially replace Obamacare by putting these health savings accounts together for people, HSAs. He showed up on Bloomberg surveillance earlier today to talk about it. Here's what Senator Cassidy said.
If you got this amount of money, and currently under the current plan, you give 100% to insurance companies and they take 20% for overhead and profit. Instead, you give 100% to patients in terms of deposits within a health savings account. First, you're lowering their deductible, and because you have lowered their deductible, they can take a cheaper bronze plan. Now, normally you don't because your deductible is higher. We just lowered their deductible. They're getting a cheaper bronze plan. By the way, when you give power to the patient, she gets the health care she chooses to have that she knows she needs, as opposed to the health care the insurance company permits her to have. A lot of wins in here for the patient. Who would not be for that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat?
Cassidy is very good at this. Here's the problem. We're down to a dozen days. 12 legislative days on the calendar in the Senate, 13 days in the House before everybody goes home for the holidays once again. And if you've been watching this movie for the last couple of years, you probably know that that's not going to be enough time. This is why we have Nathan Dean. Having survived Thanksgiving and the flag football season, America's dad is with us right now at the table. Senior U.S. policy analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence. Great to see you. Thanksgiving go well?
It went well.
Did you carve the turkey?
Did not, but I beat the fourth graders in the turkey trot, so
yes.
I was excited about that.
All right, good job. Fantastic. So now it's back to reality here, and boy, it feels a lot like last week when it's the healthcare story. Who's waiting for whom, or is that the problem? Everyone's waiting for the White House, which is waiting for Congress to do something.
Yeah, so every Monday I come in and I have a chat with the team and our healthcare policy analyst Dwayne Wright. I was like, "Where's the plan?" And really the thought here is everybody's waiting for the White House because we, like you mentioned, we have 12 legislative days, and deals don't get done until the last minute. Mm-hmm. Think of this as a shutdown fight. Okay. Neither side is really going to give up what they want to give at the moment because there's nothing pushing them against the political back wall. Mm-hmm. Now, we think that ultimately, if there is a deal, it has to come from the White House and it has to come from President Trump, because President Trump will be able to use political capital to tell congressional Republicans, this is what I want. And most likely it could be an extension, but it's not going to be what Senator Cassie wants to do, because that is a broad discussion that can't be resolved in 12 days.
System, yeah.
Save that for reconciliation debate for 2026. For right now, it's extension or not. And, you know, Dwayne's note that he just put on the terminal says words like long odds, skeptical.
Really?
I mean, look, it can happen. But, you know, right now...
So there may not be a vote, is what you're saying.
Well, you know, it doesn't cost much to have a vote on the Senate side.
Yeah.
The challenge is on the Republican side in the House, because Speaker Johnson has never guaranteed a vote.
That's right.
And I think that a lot of that congressional pushback that went back to the White House last week was from the House side. Now, will Speaker Johnson do something to overcome the Hassert rule, you know, where you can't bring anything to the floor unless the majority of your party, you know, is in support of that? The only person that can really tell Speaker Johnson to overcome the Hassert rule is President Trump. So this comes down to the president.
Boy, okay. If you're somebody looking at your health care premiums going up at the end of the year, though, you'll be a victim of this conversation until a deal is had, because there's no paper on this, right? Nobody's got a bill to vote on.
No, I mean, this is just ideas. And, you know, but I would also say is that this also fits a Democratic talking point going to 2026. And we've talked about this before, about why did Democrats agree to shut down or agree to reopen the government without having a deal in place? Because now, if those subsidies go up, you can spend 2026 and say, look, we've tried, but you don't like your increased health care costs?
Yeah.
You know, we've tried to talk to the Republicans. It's a Republican idea here. And so the challenge for the Republican piece is going to be, can we get something within 12 legislative days that we can agree upon? And if not, how quickly do we move towards reconciliation 2.0 in 2026?
I thought before you get that farther, you're going to say, and if not, we're going to have another shutdown. Can they put a CR together to keep the government open for all of this other activity?
I think you can, because, you know, we only have 9 of the 12 appropriation bills, and Bloomberg News reported over the weekend that they're somewhat close on 5 of those.
Yeah.
And that we're talking about the bulk of discretionary spending.
Okay.
So let's presume that Senate can come together and they can get an agreement by early January on those 5 appropriation bills. They jam the House. They get the House to get on board with it. I think you can avoid a shutdown, because shutdowns in midterm years aren't good politics either way. And the Democrats already have their talking point. And so I would just say is that, you know, we're at a 30% chance of a shutdown, and I don't think this Obamacare premium subsidy issue is going to change that all that much.
Boy, all right, interesting. So with all of that said, we come flying out of the holidays with no deal, right? This would be expiring on December 31st. Is there a CR? Is there a short-term solution? Maybe you could extend the subsidies for weeks while this is debated, or does it not work that way?
I think you can do it. I mean, look, the WNBA just went 40 days to get their talks continuing going before their shutdown. And so nothing says Congress can't just say, hey, let's come up with a legislative fix to this.
Yes, right.
So there are ways to kick the can. And look, let's remember, Congress loves kicking the can on things. Whether it's to March, whether it's to January, whether it's an entire year, Congress loves doing that. But again, that decision isn't made until the last single moment when people are going out to Dulles and Reagan to get on that airplane to go home for the holidays. So I'd say let's see what happens next week. But again, you know, this is going to be a big challenge, because there are a lot of Republicans up on Capitol Hill right now who are not in favor of any extension whatsoever. And it's President Trump that's going to have to be the one to decide to, you know, use that political capital against that.
Producer James reminds us next Wednesday is also Fed Day. So we could be in a world where we've got the healthcare vote, we've got a Fed meeting, and a president who might not be very happy about either of these.
Yeah, and, you know, Bloomberg News reported over the weekend that, you know, that Kevin Hassett, the director of the National Economic Council, is a front runner here.
Says he's made up his mind.
Exactly. And so, you know, that's an interesting point, though, because, you know, as we get into 2026, our story to clients has always been, it's not about legislation, it's about regulation and executive orders. Because the power of the presidency is more powerful when it comes to executive orders and to things like, you know, naming a new Fed chair. And so I think Congress is really going to have to struggle a little bit as we get into 2026 to continue with, you know, impactful legislation, because as they get more focused on the elections, you know, we in the market space are going to have to look more closely at regulation, including what President Trump decides at the Fed chair role.
Been watching Bitcoin today, and I'm sure that you are as well. I don't remember what Charlie had us near 85. We're south of 85,000 now, down $6,400, 7%, 84,750 per coin. What is the most common question you get about Bitcoin when the phone rings at the policy desk?
So you hit it, policy desk. And the question is there anything coming from Washington that will support Bitcoin or support crypto? And the answer is yes, but not now and not anytime soon. Because if you look at it legislatively, we've talked about this, but potentially this crypto market structure bill passing in the first half of next year. But that's not going to be like passing in, like, let's just say it passes in March.
Yeah.
It just gives regulatory clarity for regulators to go write rules. That's going to take another year. Whether it's a strategic Bitcoin reserve, President Trump has already dealt with that. And it's not like the United States is going to go out there and start purchasing Bitcoin, whether it's appropriations or not. They're reallocating Bitcoin that they've held from other accounts into this idea of a reserve. So if you look at the SEC and the CFTC in terms of Project Crypto, there's some interesting stuff that the regulators are doing over there to allow institutional adoption of Bitcoin, but none of it's coming today, and none of it's coming in the first quarter of next year. So our answer to our clients is that there's a lot of optimism from a policy perspective towards crypto, just not coming in today.
No action. Our man, Mike McGlone, of course, from Bloomberg Intelligence, sat in that seat last week and said yes when I asked him if we were about to start a new crypto winter. Technicals are broken, and I don't know what the fundamentals are.
I usually ask Mike that, and Mike gives me the same answer.
That's the issue, though, right? Exactly. But you said something interesting in our final moment. Are we populating a crypto reserve right now? Has that begun?
No. Essentially, what's happening here is that the United States owns around 212,000 Bitcoin. From enforcement actions, other types of
We're going to roll those into a reserve?
Well, I mean, you can essentially just move a bunch of accounts and call it a reserve.
So we have a reserve. Okay.
But what the crypto advocates want is they want additional appropriations purchases by the government, whether it's reallocating gold or buying it, and none of that's happening.
Wow. Did they ever inspect the gold at Fort Knox? Wasn't that going to happen like on day one? Remember that?
I'd have to ask producer James. I don't know.
Do you know that, James? Did they ever get down there? Just watch the movie Goldfinger, and we'll get back to you on that. Great to see you. Hope you had a great holiday. Many thanks. Nathan Dean. He won in the turkey trot. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. We'll assemble our panel next. We've got a lot to talk about with Rick and Jeannie after a long weekend. This is Bloomberg.